1964, and I was on a submarine, the U.S.S. Rasher, AGSS 269. Now, why AGSS? Because during the Cold War, we were so worried about the Russians, the Soviet Union, that we took a couple of submarines and cut them in half. Submarine, cut it in half, and added a 30-foot section to put radar equipment. And we took these submarines and put them up on the Arctic Circle to watch for Russian bombers. The thing is, it was really stupid because the platform was so low to the water, they never could pick up even a seagull, much less a Russian airplane. Because you've got to be up higher, because the radar just didn't work when it was almost underwater. But some private company said we can make a lot of money if we put all this radar equipment on submarines and put them up on the North Pole. It was doo-doo. So after they did a few exercises where we took our own planes and they couldn't see them. They're supposed to be, it was a drill, okay? Russian bombers coming. Okay, submarines, do you see anything? No, we don't see anything. We're almost underwater. It's a big storm up here. And we don't see anything. And so it was a big flop. And also the problem was the heat from this equipment made the submarine like an oven because of all this electronic equipment. And they had air conditioning, but the air conditioning always broke down. And the people would literally cook. You'd have baked sailors. So my submarine, and so AGSS, it means they redesignated it to AG, which is auxiliary. So they took all the equipment off of it, and they kept the 30-foot section. Because of this 30-foot section, when we hit the diving alarm, which was up on the bridge, it would go slowly down because of this huge 30-foot section. It didn't act like a submarine. When you got it down to where you wanted to be, and you tried to change depth, everything was like an underwater blimp. And the name of it, the Rasher, if you were to Google Rasher, it's this little tiny goldfish, little sweet goldfish. And that was our submarine, was named after a little sweet goldfish. So, good as a shark or that great white shark, but ours was a little Rasher. I'm on the submarine, and one of the things in submarine training is they move the officers from job to job so that you got to do everything. My first job on that submarine was being a supply officer. I was in charge of food. I was the foodie officer. And I had a certain budget, and it was like $1.50 per man per day that I could spend. And I had to make up the menus and my cooks. I relied on my cooks. Now, my chief cook, I'll never forget. Listen, how would you like a cook whose name was Rat Breath Lazat? Rat Breath Lazat. He was my chief cook. And he would say, "Oh, Mr. Khoury, we're going to get I know you're the supply officer. One thing I've always wanted to have on the submarine is baked Alaska. I said, baked Alaska? Chief, we're gonna bust the budget. Well, what we'll do, Mr. Khoury, is we'll just feed everybody crap. And then we can save up money for the baked Alaska. Isn't that great? I said, okay. Because the problem is, I was younger than every single enlisted man on the submarine. I was just a kid. In fact, it was sort of a tradition that the enlisted men would give as a present the officers a coffee cup with a little cartoon which they felt signified that officer. And I said, wow, I could just see myself, Pirate Charlie, you know, with a saber and everything like that. And so they wrapped it all up and they presented it to me. And there it was, this sort of guy, a wide-eyed guy like this, and the name of it was The Kid. Oh man, this is not what the image, well, that's what they thought of me because I was so young, and I was the supply officer, and I did get baked Alaska. They ate nothing for a whole week, but they got baked Alaska. And the crew was complaining, but they shut up when they got Alaska. But they said, geez, this is all we're gonna have. We ate potatoes and, oh gosh, something that's really cheap was, picture this, cream chipped beef on toast. So I gotta tell you, I was so happy when they I think they moved me a little fast off of that. You're supposed to be 6 months, and they said, okay, Lieutenant Khoury, Captain, we're gonna move you from being supply officer to navigator. Navigator, yep, and we are going to do maneuvers with the Korean Navy, and your job is to get us to Chinhae, Korea. That is the seaport where the Korean Navy hung out, and we were going to be the submarine that they were going to try to sink. Chinhae, Korea. But to get to Korea, you have to go through the Straits of Shimonoseki. They are so scary because they're a tiny dot in the ocean. They're down at the south end of Japan, and you've got to go through them. Anyway, how could I was never, this is true stories, Papa had a problem with organization and neatness. Those were two things that just weren't natural to me. And to be a navigator, you've got to be really organized, and you've got to be neat. And you've also got to have the ability to do celestial navigation. What is celestial navigation? It's navigating by the stars. Because in 1964, there were no satellites.
No GPS.
There was no GPS. We had something called LORAN, which was really screwy. And the signals, when you're in the open ocean, you can't even pick up a signal. All we really had was celestial navigation and what's called a DRT, Dead Reckoning Tracer. It was a little computer that was an analog computer that if you set it and you put in a course and put in a speed, it had wheels, little gears, and it would go and a little dot would move along on a table, on a screen, and that's where you were supposed to be.
Wow.
But it didn't, there was no way to put in the variables of current,
Right.
Interesting.
wind,
Holy moly.
and if your star fix was wrong, it started out wrong, okay, and it didn't get better, it didn't correct anything. So it all depended on you getting a good navigational fix from the stars. I had to in the sextant you got the star, and then you brought the angle, you brought it down to the horizon. But my submarine was so low in the water, I could never see the horizon. There was not a straight line. It's sort of like when the smog comes from Los Angeles, you can't see the horizon, you see a brown haze. But when you're also, picture yourself like on a raft, the ocean, all you see is the waves, and you can't see a straight line. So my star, and the thing about it, you had to get 3 lines that intersect, and you were where they intersected. But my triangles where they're supposed to be like boop, boop, and then another one, and you're right there, and it has a latitude and a longitude. And you told you, I got it, Chief, here it is. And the chief would go run down and reset the dead reckoning tracer, and you knew it right then and there, you knew it. But I would call down to the chief, I got it fixed, Chief. The sides of the triangle are 500 miles by 500 miles by 1,200 miles, and we're in there someplace. That's a huge amount. You didn't know where you were. I never knew where I was. So I made a deal. I said, look, I gotta do this somehow. I couldn't tell the captain that I couldn't do this.
We're somewhere.
My job. Yeah, that does not work. And submarines always travel by themselves. They don't go in a convoy, they go by themselves. You're supposed to be
Not following
independent. And we were on our way from Hawaii, and we had to hit the Straits of Shimonoseki on the button. This tiny little speck in this huge ocean. So the quartermaster, an old grizzled chief, I've got an idea, Mr. Khoury. He helped me. I got an idea, Mr. Khoury. Take the mid watches, and I'll make sure we have a signalman on watch. Really? Oh, okay. Mid watches from 12 to 4, which means I was up from 12 to 4 all night. And I said, but Chief, I can't take a star sign. Never mind, Mr. Khoury. You know what I got in mind. You know, but get up here when it's sunset and pretend you're getting a star sign. Just pretend. Oh, okay, Chief. And so I would be up there, and I would be, how's it going, Charlie? Fine, Captain. I'm really well, you gonna get us a good posit? Yes, sir. You know, we'll know right where we are. And Chief, wait. So, okay, Chief. Okay, you told me to take the mid-watch. Now what? He says, what we're gonna do, Mr. Khoury, is we're gonna see a big ship, a Navy ship, and we'll ask them where they are. Oh, really? Yeah, just trust me. I've had this happen before. And so, in the signalman, the thing about submarines is we didn't do too much signaling because we were supposed to be the silent service, not tell anybody where we are. Of course, since we didn't know where we were, that was easy. You know? So anyway, when we saw, like, say for example, there was a large tanker, but it had to be Navy, because the merchant ships don't have signal lights. If they'd seen a flashing light, they would have said, what? So my signalman would get up there, and I said, well, how do we do this? How do we ask where we are? Isn't that sort of embarrassing? No, here's what you do. You gotta appeal to the sense of humor. And they all, Mr. Khoury, haven't you ever heard of that lost Indian tribe called the Fagawis? I said, no, I never heard of that. And he said, here's what you do. Your signalmen say, we're the Fagawi. We're the Fagawi, and we don't know where we are. We're the Fagawi. We gotta find the other tribe members. So my signalman would get up there. What am I supposed to do, Mr. Khoury? Just say, we're the Fagawi. And
we're the Fagawi!
Yeah, we're the Fagawi. And how do you spell that, Mr. F-U-G-A-W-I? Come on. And so he would signal, and there would be a long silence. And the way that they knew that they got the message is they would go one long line, and they got it. And they would
you mean the light would
go? The light would go long.
Right.
That means I got it. So I never figured out the Fagawi. Never figured it out. They knew.
Oh my
the
God.
ship knew. Everybody knew but me. That's why I got a coffee cup that said the kid. So, and the crowning glory was, so every time we saw a ship, a big ship, we would get another update on latitude and longitude, put it in there. How you doing, Charlie? Are we going to hit the Straits of Shimonoseki? Well, we're not going to hit them, Your Honor. You Captain, Your Honor. We're going to go through them to Korea. Okay. And he slept a lot. Oh my God, the captain slept the whole time. And, you know, and he would just, wake me up when we get close. Okay. You know, and I'm not kidding. And it was just up to me and this incredible chief and the ships. And I cannot tell you how good it felt on the horizon. I'm starting to get anxious. We're supposed to see the Straits of Shimonoseki. On the horizon, there are the Straits of Shimonoseki, and on the chart, and the good old dead reckoning tracer, DRT, said, that's them. And once you're inside of land, you forget the star sites, and everything is visual.
It's amazing.
And of course, they had a light so that you wouldn't run into it. So we got through the Straits of Shimonoseki, and we had, and the Koreans were so happy because they got a submarine to chase, and they would chase us, and we would submerge, and then they would drop hand grenades on us.
What's
And-
that?
Were they just messing with you, the South Koreans? Were
No,
they
it
just
was
playing?
exercise. They needed to.
Oh, it was
They
a training.
needed to be able to train, and
Okay.
and whose submarines were they going to train with?
Right.
Us.
Yeah.
And anyway, and we were this whale of a submarine, this blimp underwater, and it made it easier for them because we were so big and so slow.
What a great story.
So that's the way of how Papa was Prince Henry the Navigator. You heard that term, Prince Henry?
Yes.
That was Prince Charlie the Navigator.
Oh, blow the man down, bullies, blow the man down. Give me way, blow the man down. Blow the man down, bullies, blow him away.
Thank you.